The courtroom was silent, but the silence wasn't out of respect. It was the kind of silence that follows humiliation, the kind that lingers after cruel words are spoken. At the center of it all sat a black man, fined, mocked, and belittled by a judge who seemed more interested in flexing her power than upholding justice. The man kept his composure, but behind his calm expression was a truth the judge could never have imagined. What she didn't know was that this man held a position that could change her life forever. And when he revealed it, the room froze. The man's name was Marcus. To the world outside the courtroom, he was a hard-working professional who carried himself with quiet strength. Born in a small southern town, Marcus had grown up in a community where skin color often dictated opportunity. His parents instilled in him a sense of discipline, reminding him that dignity was a shield stronger than anger. That shield would be tested countless times in his life. On the day he entered the courthouse, Marcus wasn't there as a prosecutor, but as a citizen, fighting an unjust citation. To anyone watching, he was just another black man standing before a judge. He didn't wear the polished suit he usually donned for federal cases. Instead, he wore something simple, the kind of clothes that made him appear ordinary, perhaps even vulnerable. The judge presiding that day was notorious. Whispers about her behavior had long echoed through the county. Quick to anger, quicker to belittle, and always harsher when the defendant was a minority. She had built a reputation of commanding her courtroom not through fairness, but through fear and scorn. As Marcus stood before her, the gavel came down hard, not only on the desk, but on his dignity. She dismissed his explanations, waved aside evidence, and delivered fines with the casual cruelty of someone who had long forgotten what justice meant. The spectators in the room shifted uncomfortably, but none dared to speak. What no one knew, not even the judge, was that Marcus wasn't just another man fighting a petty citation. He was a federal prosecutor with the power to challenge the very foundation she stood on. The humiliation began slowly, almost like a game. The judge leaned forward, her voice dripping with disdain as she exaggerated every flaw she thought she saw in Marcus. She mocked his tone, questioned his education, and suggested he didn't understand the law. The irony, of course, was piercing. Marcus had spent his career upholding that very law, protecting it from those who sought to abuse it. "Perhaps if you had studied harder, you wouldn't be standing here wasting the court's time," she said, her words sharp enough to draw invisible wounds. The audience remained still, yet the tension was thick. Marcus kept his composure. He remembered his parents' lessons. Never let them see you break. Dignity is your greatest weapon. His hands rested on the wooden table, steady, his eyes fixed forward. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. But inside, the injustice burned. He had seen it before. Young men unfairly sentenced, mothers dismissed, fathers fined into poverty, all while standing in courtrooms much like this one. And too often, the verdict was not decided by facts, but by the color of skin. The judge issued her fines swiftly, stacking penalties so steep it seemed designed to crush. She even threatened contempt when Marcus attempted to clarify his position. To her, he was just another case, another man to put in his place. What she didn't realize was that Marcus was carefully observing, documenting every moment in his mind. He knew the law better than anyone in that room, perhaps better than the judge herself. He knew her words weren't just cruel. They were unethical, a stain on the very fabric of the system she had sworn to uphold. The spectators in the gallery exchanged glances. Some shook their heads, their discomfort palpable. They weren't just watching a legal proceeding. They were witnessing an abuse of power unfold before their eyes. Minutes felt like hours. The gavel struck again, finalizing the fines. The judge leaned back with a smirk, satisfied that she had reminded this black man of his place. But Marcus knew something she didn't. The humiliation wasn't the end of this story. It was only the beginning. The room was ready to move on, but Marcus remained still. Then, with quiet confidence, he reached into his briefcase and placed a single badge on the table. The metallic glint caught the light, and suddenly the room seemed to shrink. The judge leaned forward, her smirk fading as her eyes locked onto the emblem before her. It was the unmistakable badge of a federal prosecutor. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The silence that followed was different now, heavy, stunned, almost suffocating. The same spectators who had pitied Marcus moments before now watched with wide eyes, their expressions shifting from sympathy to awe. The judge's face drained of color. In an instant, the power she had wielded so recklessly evaporated. She realized the man she had mocked, fined, and humiliated wasn't just another defendant. He was a representative of the federal government, someone who could expose her behavior, challenge her authority, and bring accountability to her courtroom. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His very identity spoke louder than anything he could say. The badge was a mirror, reflecting her prejudice back at her. Every word she had spoken now stood as evidence, not against Marcus, but against her. The judge shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hands fidgeting with the gavel as if it could somehow restore her control. But there was no undoing what had just been revealed. The courtroom had seen it. The mask had slipped. For the first time that day, it wasn't Marcus who looked small. It was her. News of the incident spread quickly. Those who had witnessed it spoke in hushed but determined voices about the judge's humiliation, about how arrogance and racism had met their reckoning. Within weeks, formal complaints began to surface. Investigations were launched. And though the system often moved slowly, it moved nonetheless. For Marcus, the moment wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, not the shallow justice handed out with bias, but the deeper justice that comes when truth is revealed. He hadn't needed to shout, hadn't needed to retaliate. He had let dignity and truth speak for him. And in doing so, he had shown the courtroom, and perhaps the world beyond it, that racism may wound, but it cannot define. The judge's career would never recover fully. Her authority had been tarnished by her own actions. The badge Marcus carried had done more than reveal his profession. It had revealed her prejudice. But perhaps the most powerful part of the story wasn't what happened to her. It was the reminder of who Marcus was, a man who had risen through adversity, who carried generations of struggle on his shoulders, and who embodied the truth that no amount of humiliation could strip away dignity earned through integrity. As viewers, we're left with a haunting question. How many others without badges or titles have been silenced in courtrooms just like that one? How many voices have been dismissed? How many lives altered simply because justice was filtered through the lens of prejudice? Marcus's story is more than a courtroom drama. It is a mirror reflecting society's ongoing struggle, a reminder that racism still lurks where it should least exist. And it is a call, not just to outrage, but to awareness, to action, to the simple yet profound truth that justice without equality is no justice at all. Marcus revealed his badge and changed the room forever, but I want to hear from you. What would you have done in his place? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that uncover the truth behind prejudice and power.